Alright, hello everyone. So today we are doing a tier list of all of the North American Splatfests. Although, I say North American, but all the Splatfests kind of use the same maps anyway, so the whole idea thing doesn't really matter anyway, since they're all the same Splatfest. But today I have all of these Splatfests with me, and we are going to rank them in my opinion, so if you guys disagree, that's totally fine, it's just my opinion. All of the Splatfests one by one. And we are going to start with Mayo versus Ketchup 1. So this Splatfest was probably the most basic Splatfest there ever was, because it's the first Splatfest of Splatoon 2. So it was kind of just setting the groundwork there. It only lasted one day. The map was kinda. But honestly, in my opinion, I think it's not worthy of being in C tier. I think it's a solid B tier Splatfest. Alright, next up we have Flight versus Invisibility. This was another, I didn't like this one a whole ton. Honestly, one of my least favorite Splatfests because of the map that it had. The Secret of Splat, in my opinion, was not really a good map. Honestly, worse than Wayside Cool, which was Mayo versus Ketchup's map. So honestly, in my opinion, I'm gonna have to give Flight versus Invisibility a C. The concept was cool, but it's a very basic concept. So, very basic concept, very basic map, so I'm going to give that one a C tier. After that, we have Vampire versus Werewolf, and this map was Windmill House on the Pearly to go with it. The Splatfest, I'm gonna give it a B tier, just because there's been another better Splatfest for the Halloween to celebrate there, and honestly, they didn't do much for this Halloween Splatfest. The map was pretty good. I just don't think it's A tier. It's honest. It's on the sliver of being A tier though. So we'll put it before Mayo versus Ketchup 1. Yeah. All right. Next up we have Sci-Fi versus Fantasy. The Splatfest had a pretty mediocre map to say the least. This is a solid C tier Splatfest. The concept is another super basic one. Not as basic as Flight versus Invisibility, but the map was bad. It was a bad map, so I'm gonna throw the Goose Sponge with its map, and it was a bad map, so it's gonna go in C tier. All right, next up we have Sock versus Sweater, which was the the first Christmas Splatfest. Actually, there was only one Christmas Splatfest. The other one I was thinking of was for January to celebrate the New Year, not Christmas. So. This was the only Christmas Splatfest that we had, or semi-Christmas Splatfesting that we had, and it was the concept was kind of it was another really boring idea. Kind of, I don't want to say I've been putting so much stuff in C tier, but I'm gonna put this one in C tier again because of the map it had. Fancy Spew honestly was just not a good map in my opinion, so that one's also getting another C tier. Alright, action versus comedy. I'm sorry, but once again, I literally hate this one. The map was just not good. Its map was Zone of Glass, and it is so easy to accidentally throw yourself off this map thinking you're gonna run into one of the invisible panels. Invisible places to walk for a map where you need to, shoot the ground is really stupid. Especially, this wasn't for something like another mode, like one of the ranked modes. This was for Turf War, and you could easily miss a ton of area thinking that something was there when it wasn't there, or something, or vice versa. This map was not a good idea in my opinion, so that one's getting another C tier. Money versus Love. It's a basic concept, but it most certainly served its purpose. This Splatfest definitely could tear some people apart on what they wanted to choose with, and the map Cannon Fire Pearl is in my opinion, one of the best Splatfest maps. So honestly, I'm gonna have to give this one an S tier just because of the map. The map and the choice that it had people make, this was a really good one. Alright, next up we have Chicken versus Egg 1. This one was, I have mixed feelings on this one. On one hand, I really liked the map, but I know a lot of people did not like the map that it had. This one had the bunker games, which basically 3 bunkers would close down over time. A lot of really cool mini games have been made out of the thing that this map does. I'm hesitant on giving it S tier, but the question was pretty good. The map was okay in terms of how the community took it, so I think I'm going to give this one an A. Next up we have baseball versus soccer. This was a pretty I didn't expect this concept to come up in Splatoon. You can definitely tell this one is geared towards North American players. But, the map here, Grapple Link Girl, not a really good map in my opinion, but not bad enough to be labeled as C tier. So I'm gonna put this one in B tier. Alright, so we have all of the Ninja Turtle Splatfests up next. Alright, so next up, we have the Ninja Turtle Splatfest, the tournament Splatfest. In my opinion, that this was a horrible idea. Like, the whole idea of doing, like, a Ninja Turtles themed Splatfest was kind of just because Nickelodeon gave Nintendo money. And honestly, like, this show didn't even last any long. This show didn't last long at all. So they literally just handed Nintendo a bunch of money to say, like, put these guys in a Splatfest or something to promote our TV show that we're gonna kill in a few years anyway, because it didn't get, like, SpongeBob numbers. But that's besides the point. We're talking about Splatfest today. This Splatfest had a bad map. It had a swiftly tilting balance where the only theme of that map was, like, if you had a few people standing on part of the map, then platforms would move up and down, but, like, it didn't tell you how you were moving things there, so honestly, this one's going in C tier. I think I'm only gonna put, actually no, I'll put all of them in there. It's gonna get a little congested, but just know that these are basically all the same Splatfest. Alright, after that, we have Pulp versus No Pulp. This is a stupid concept. It is truly just a stupid concept. Like, I don't even need to, like, say how dumb it is. I think everyone can tell how dumb it is, but the map of this Splatfest is honestly my favorite Shifty Station. If it wasn't for this stupid concept, I would give it an X rank, but I will put it in front of Money vs. Love just because of how good the map was with it. The map was Zappy Long Shocking, by the way, and basically it was a very open map, and I liked that a lot. I don't know why, I just really love this map. I know Squid vs. Octo comes between Pulp versus No Pulp and the one after this, but the creator of this tier list format didn't put it in there, so I'm gonna have to save that one for the end. Alright, we got Spoon versus Fork, or Fork versus Spoon. This Splatfest sucked. This is honestly just one of the worst Splatfests that has ever been made. Like, the map was bad. The switches was not a good map at all. And the concept was just so dumb. Like, this is... I gotta say, like, the concept was better than Pulp versus No Pulp. But, like, it still that does not make it good. But honestly, I'm gonna say, like, I think I am gonna put it after the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splatfest because I don't like the switches as a map. I feel like there have been better ones. Alright, Retro versus Modern came after that. And honestly, I think I'm gonna have to give this one an A tier. Like, the Bounty Twins as a map was not my favorite map at first. I did not like it a whole ton. But honestly, like, in my opinion, the more I've played on that map over time, the more I can see how good it is for what it is. The concept was honestly, it was pretty cool. Not as good of a concept as Chicken versus Egg, but still, in my opinion, this one was pretty good. So I'm gonna have to give it an A tier. Alright, we got Trick versus Treat. The original Trick versus Treat. This was a good one. The map was pretty good. Railway Chillin' was an okay map, but this was the first time that the square had ever been redesigned just for one Splatfest. So honestly, with how cool they did, they also did a bunch of exclusive gear for this Splatfest and didn't region lock the gear. So because of this one, I'm gonna have to give this one an S tier. Alright, Salsa versus Guac. This was the Splatfest that came right after. And the map that this one came with was Gusher Towers. It was a pretty good map, not gonna lie. I liked Gusher Towers. The concept was kinda... It's very basic Splatfest question. It's on, like, the same level of Mayo versus Ketchup with the concept of it. But honestly, I didn't hate this one, especially since this one had red ink and the community has some fixation with the red ink. So honestly, I think I'm gonna put this one right between Chicken vs. Egg 1 and Retro vs. Modern in A tier. It was a pretty good one. Alright, after that, we've got Heroes vs. Villains. This was to promote Super Smash Bros., obviously. Honestly, this one got screwed over. It had a pretty dumb map. It had the Maze Dasher as a map. It was not a very good map. It sucks too, because it should have been one of the biggest Splatfests because it was promoting Smash Bros. Ultimate, but they got stuck with a bad map. I do think that this is going to go in A tier, but it's probably going to remain at the bottom of A tier. Like, this is just between the verge of A tier and B tier. It's like either really low A or really high B tier. But after that, we have one of the best Splatfests ever. We have Fam vs. Friend. And this was the second time that the square had ever been redesigned. And this Splatfest was so good that I made a whole video based on this Splatfest and another one that's going to come up next. The map was really, really good for this one. The map was Flutters in the Attic, and it was such a cool map. You could ride around on Flutters. You could try to get it to roll over the opponents. It was a fun map. You can have a lot of fun with this map, and the square looked really cool with all the redesigns they did to it. So this one's going to be the first X tier of the night. It's not going to remain the top X tier because there are definitely Splatfests better than this one, but this is a solid X tier Splatfest right here. All right. After that, we have Pancake versus Waffle. This is one of my favorite Splatfests for a personal reason. So this Splatfest happened right before the February 2019 Splatoon 2 Inkling opening, and all of my homies got together. Well, some of us were homies, but we all got together, me and like 3 other people, to play this Splatfest and grind it out the night before, and then partake in the tournament. We got eliminated after our second match, but still, it's a very nostalgic Splatfest to me, and I had fun on this map. It wasn't like the best Splatfest map. It was basically just Splat zones the map. It was called the Splat in our zones. It was very basic, but I think I'm gonna have to give this one an A tier. And kind of personal opinion on that one, so I'm gonna put it in high A tier. Definitely not worthy of being, actually, I'm going to put it right before Chicken vs. Egg. I was going to say it's not worthy of being close to be called bottom S, but it was a pretty good experience for me. I like this one. I feel like the teams weren't too unbalanced. Like, it was a good, solid Splatfest. The concept wasn't too extremely hard to figure out. It was a good one. It was a basic Splatfest. It was good. After that, we've got Knights vs. Wizards. This Splatfest had so much potential, it really did, and the only thing that held this Splatfest back was its map. So basically, some of the amiibo gear could be used with this Splatfest to dress your Inkling or Octoling up like a knight or a wizard during the Splatfest happened. And the potential here was just totally squandered with the map. And the map here was the ink is spreading, and it was basically just like the Splat in our zones, just like more delayed. You'd ink a zone, the whole thing would ink, and then these little like belts would start taking part of the map. And there was one big one in the middle. Like, it was... I'm gonna put it in A tier, but I'm not... I think I'll put it like right here. The map was just... It wasn't actually... No, I think I'll put it after Salsa vs. Guac. The map was not that good, in my opinion. Like, the ink colors were really cool, though. The concept was pretty cool. It was better than Sci-Fi versus Fantasy, because you had, like, a distinct category that you were fighting in. But it's an A tier Splatfest at best. Honestly, you could probably make the argument for putting it in B, but this is my tier list. Okay, Tortoise v. Hare. Hare v. Tortoise. Literally, in my opinion, one of the best Splatfests ever. The whole redesign of the square here was totally insane. The best redesign of the square they had, in my opinion, better than Chaos versus Order. But the redesign here was really cool. The only thing holding this one back was the map, and the map wasn't even that bad. Like, the map was pretty good. The community had mixed feelings on this map. I loved it though. I loved the concept of having the like Hare versus Tortoise question asked as that's a cool concept. That was a cool concept that they wanted to ask based off the folk tale that the whole Splatfest was based off of. The map was good. The redesigns were good. This goes right before Fan vs. Friend, in my opinion. This freaking Splatfest, absolutely the worst. Time travel versus teleportation. This map was horrible. Like, the concept was okay. The concept is on par with Knights vs. Wizards. This map was literally the worst map that has ever been in the game. So the map was Chronicles of Rolonia, and this map sucked. It was so freaking small, and like the Rolonia wasn't even a one-hit kill for the most part anyway. You had to like get some ink on your opponent too, so you couldn't like pull off some crazy clips with the Rolonium and get a one-hit kill. You couldn't. It sucked. This whole thing sucked. Absolutely the worst Splatfest there has ever. Actually, no, there's one Splatfest worse than that. It was the second worst Splatfest ever. Unicorns versus Narwhals was a total redemption. Unicorns versus Narwhals had literally one of the best maps ever. Like, out of, like, even all the normal maps that we have in-game today. And, like, I don't know why, but Viewer in the Ashes is one of the best maps that Nintendo's ever come up with for Splatoon 2. Like, if they made this a permanent edition, it probably wouldn't work for a ranked battle. But, like, this was a solid turf war map. This was a fun turf war map. It basically featured feelers that you could shoot down that would, like, reveal ramps for you or hidden ways up. And at some point in the map, the water levels would drop and you'd have more level to go to. It was like Mahi Mahi Resort. This is an X tier Splatfest. Probably the lowest X tier Splatfest, but it's still an X tier Splatfest nonetheless. Alright, the big one. The biggest one ever. Chaos versus Order. This is... Do I even need to say anything here? This had arguably and not in my opinion, but arguably in the community, the best redesign of the square there's ever been. The concept was insane. I remember it took me like 2 weeks to pick a side. I didn't know what side I wanted to go on, but I eventually went Order. Big mistake right there. The maps, MC Princess Diaries is like generally considered to be the best shifty station that Nintendo has ever made, and like for good reason. They brought back the killer whale, kinda. And the map was like, it's cool. It had a ton of open space, and like still, it was a good Splatoon map. Like there was not a ton of places where you could like go for cover, but it really didn't even matter because of how big the map was. It was really good. Plus the Splatfest allowed you to play all of the other shifty stations. So for now, it will be top X tier. Until the one that came right after. So on surface level, Mayo vs. Ketchup 2 is literally just Mayo vs. Ketchup 1. But because of the circumstance that built up to Mayo vs. Ketchup 2, with quarantine just starting and no one having anything to do, the hype behind this Splatfest was so unreal, it's not even funny. It was literally just like one of the most basic maps in the whole game. It was just once again Wayside Cool. It's a basic map, but because of how hyped the community was to have its first rerun Splatfest, it was insane. Like, I remember, like, people, like, freaking out, looking into data mining Splatoon to try to find more Splatfest, and, like, we ended up finding them. But the community was, like, totally rejuvenated at the fact that this stupid Mayo vs. Ketchup Splatfest was getting a rerun. It was so insane that Heinz Ketchup even got involved and started tweeting about, or just pro-Team Ketchup propaganda. It was the best, honestly, in my opinion, like right besides the launch of Splatoon 3 being announced, the best time to be a Splatoon fan, just because the energy in the community was insane. So honestly, in my opinion, it's better than Chaos vs. Order, just because of how much hype that the Splatfest caused for Splatoon fans. Chicken vs. Egg 2 was an okay Splatfest. It really just felt like Chicken vs. Egg again. But once again, this was a rerun Splatfest, so it got the community talking again. And it was desperately needed too, because the hype had just worn down. It's been like 3 months since the last bonus fest. So it was... Also, this was another 2-day Splatfest. I don't think the first Chicken vs. Egg was a 2-day Splatfest. So I'm going to give this one credit, although I could have given Mayo vs. Ketchup a bonus for being a 2-day Splatfest. There's a lot of them I could have given bonuses for 2-day Splatfest, but this one being another bonus fest was absolutely incredible because it once again rejuvenated the community, so I'm going to give this one a bottom S tier. This one, the rerun of Trick vs. Treat. This was a pretty good Splatfest. Honestly, like, although it was a pretty good Splatfest, it was pretty dull though. Like this was like the first bonus fest that I didn't try to go for like the highest rank available for Splatfest team, just because like honestly at that point I just didn't feel like it was totally necessary. And in my opinion, there were better Splatfests that they could have rerun besides this one. Like, I was super hoping for Hare vs. Tortoise 2 to come again in April rather than have this one, but there's nothing much we can do there, so I think I'm gonna put this one probably at like top A tier. The original Splatfest of Trick vs. Treat honestly took the cake in my opinion. This one. Holy crap. was this was the worst Splatfest ever. Mushroom vs. Star was the worst Splatfest ever, and I made a whole video talking about it. Go click on the iCard if you really want to hear my whole, like, in-depth about it. It was horrible. There was no reason for the Splatfest to be as bad as it was. Basically, this was, like, the biggest issue the community has ever had with dealing with popularity. 68.2% of people went with Team Star over Team Mushroom. And Team Mushroom still won, because it was basically impossible for Team Star to find a match. I remember playing the Splatfest. There were so many more times that I would find matches with Team Star over Team Mushroom, because of just how, like, poorly Nintendo chose this. Like, they could have easily done, like, Mushroom... no, not Mushroom, not like, maybe like Fireflower versus Star would have been a better one. Like, the idea of doing Mushroom versus Star is dumb. Like, they're the most iconic power-ups, but, like, everyone's gonna go Star. Star is objectively better. And this one should not have been as bad as it was. It had 4 Splatfest maps. It had Cannon Fire Pearl, the Bunker Games, the Bouncy Twins, and the Chronicles of Rolonium. It had basically, like, 3 out of 4 good maps. But because it had Chronicles of Rolonium, it sucked. I'd just be like, every time I got stuck playing Chronicles of Rolonium. Plus, like, just 2 Splatfests ago, we had already gotten the Bunker Games back, so it was a little overwhelming to go straight back into playing Bunker Games. So, in my opinion, honestly, I'm gonna have to give this one, like, the lowest tier possible. I hated the Splatfest. It was absolutely atrocious, in my opinion. Alright, Squid vs. Octo, I literally just put up in post. I don't even know where it is right now. My mouse could be running all over it. But honestly, in my opinion, this was probably like the highest, no, not the highest B tier. This was a solid, like, 2nd place A tier Splatfest, because of the whole, like, being the 1-year anniversary of Splatoon, and having playable Octolings available for anyone that went Octo. But in my opinion, the map held it back. Sweet Valley Tentacles was a pretty confusing map, in my opinion. So, yeah, we're gonna squeeze it in, like, right here, right between Chicken vs. Egg and the second rerun, or the rerun of Splatoween. Alright, gamers, that is it from me. Let me know what you think about my tier list. Let me know which ones you think I should have ranked higher or lower in the comments below. Alright, I will see everyone later. Goodbye.